you have two currencies in life to make a world.
Yeah.
And one is your time and one is your attention. Where you put your attention, things start to grow. That's where the ultimate worlds are built.
Go. Let's go. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the show. I have an incredible guest for you today, one of my favorite human beings on the planet, Mr. Jacob Collier. Jacob is currently nominated for the Album of the Year Grammy for Djesse Volume 4, as well as 2 other nominations. He already has 6 Grammy wins and 15 nominations. He's stacking them, and he's not stopping. Jacob is a force to be reckoned with. He's an amazing human. I always love spending time with him and getting to talk with him. So I hope you enjoy this conversation and get to have a nice inside look on the mind and heart of Jacob Collier. So please subscribe and share with your friends. So now here's my conversation with Jacob Collier. What's up, man? It's a vibe. It's a party. I think everyone should sit in the background. Just everybody. Yeah. Background vocals the entire episode. Now you really look like Jacob now.
Oh, we out here.
Well, okay, let's get this going. We're gonna get this pod going in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Sitting with me today is one of my favorite artists in the world. A voice of a generation. He's collected hundreds of thousands of voices. Make a ton of noise for 6-time Grammy winner, soon to be 7 or 8 or 9-time Grammy winner, Jacob Collier!
Oh, wow. Oh, gosh. A real crowd. Oh, thanks so much, Elmo.
The follows you everywhere now.
I can't escape him. I can't. It's so nice to see you. It's so nice to be on this legendary podcast. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, man. Always good to talk to you. I always enjoy our conversations. Yeah. You know, you said something that really resonated with me. You were talking about how you can make your own world and being a world builder, and that really resonated with me because I've always felt like that's what makes me happy. Is I feel like I'm creating my own world. I'm in it. We're going. It continues to go, and I know you're doing that too. So can you touch a little bit on being a world builder?
Well, I love that. What a first question. And it's funny because you're a world builder as well, and so I know, like, you know, real recognized real or whatever. But you're one of these people who understands the intricacies of world building, because the thing with world building is it takes a lot of different perspectives to make it work, and different distances from the thing you're building. You know, because there are aspects of, for example, creating an experience, like an event or like an album or like a tour or like a conversation. Yes. That requires you to be far away to see the overarching shape of things. And then there are aspects that require you to be really close with your magnifying glass and get all the details right. I think I've been a world builder forever. I think I was a world builder as a kid, and I loved the feeling of expanding the internal world. I feel like the internal world is the place everything begins. You know, it's like your well, you can say your room of sorts. And I was one of these really lucky kids who had a physical room to play around in. And so the first world I ever built was that room, and I really wanted to make it right, and I wanted to make it distinct and capacious and freeing. And then I think I've scaled the DNA of what that room has felt like to me, musically, spiritually, physically, in terms of gear, and all of that stuff, in terms of stories, into this different scale. But I still kind of feel like I'm in a big room somehow.
And this is literally that same room that we see in all of your Instagrams and everything.
Yeah, it is. I spent a lot of time there. It's the room that I learned to walk in when I was just a wee lad, you know.
Wow.
And I'm one of these people who's always lived in the same family home for my whole life.
Yeah, beautiful.
So I've always known that room since day dot, you know, and so that room has seen me through every possible state. Yeah. And I've really grown up alongside it. But yeah, when I think about a world that there is to be built, and the world that you can invite other people to be a part of, it's like a lot of the essences of those for me are rooted in that physical space in London, which is like over there somewhere.
Amazing, man. And I mean, now you've done all 4 Djesses, right? The Djesse series hath been complete. So do you see yourself do you see yourself staying in this room? Like, do you want to go to a new room to create whatever's next for you, or?
Yeah, well, it's been a funny journey because, you know, the first record I ever made was called In My Room, and I made that record completely by myself. It was like a solitary solo mission. and I deeply enjoyed the process. And I think it was a crucial process for me because it really helped me distill what mattered, and like what matters, it guides everything, I think, and especially when you're a creative person, if you can figure out and unearth those like core principles, then you're kind of free to go. But over the last 7 years, I've been making, as you say, these Djesse albums, volume 1, 2, 3, 4, and they've taken me way outside the room, so all different corners of the world, literally every corner of the world I could possibly imagine. And I've collaborated with artists and orchestras and rock guitar legends and folk fiddlers and choirs and everything, and then audiences as well. So yeah, as you said, there are 100,000 people on Volume 4, and so it's in a sense I feel like I've already kind of left the room, but the room still feels like an intense form of anchorage for me, and I think it will probably always will. I can't imagine a world without the room in it, but I think that the room has kind of almost graduated beyond being a physical space, and it's more almost like a metaphor now. Yeah. For whatever environment it is that I'm in. So it's like that old saying, like home is in your body, like home is where you are. It's like you can make a room anywhere if you kind of can, if you can grow roots anywhere. Yes. And I think that's something that all creative people of different kinds come up against, having to learn to do it in a certain way at certain times. I think in the last few years, I've really enjoyed that challenge of not having the room as my one and only space, but then bringing all the materials of the world back to the room to sort of collate and congeal and like make this thing work,
Beautiful, man. Well, you're making it work. You got the Album of the Year nomination for Djesse Volume 4. Congratulations. I mean, the nomination in and of itself is massive, dude.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, it's really surreal. I have to be honest. It's never remotely a thing that feels within reach. I don't think for any artist. I don't think, maybe unless you're Taylor Swift. It's like you can't be like, well, I'm going to get the Album of the Year nom, and then I'm going to go and do this and that. It's a marvelous thing, but really, really extraordinary. I will say I poured my heart and soul into Volume 4. I really wanted to represent all the things about music that I've fallen in love with, and about collaboration that I've fallen in love with, really accurately and transparently. And so, like, in a sense, the thing I'm most proud of with that nomination this year is not just that like I get the nomination and it's great for me, but it's just the community of people that are on that record are so unique and so singular and so international. And I think that there are sort of values at play on that album that are even louder than the music. It's like this idea of sort of like radical inclusivity, incorporating the audience, just this massive amalgamation, this tapestry of the whole of music, that I kind of sought after. And I had this feeling in my brain and in my heart as a kid of just this sound world. And I'd never heard it before in one go, but I heard it in different sections. I loved orchestras, and I loved like bands like Queen, and I loved like Bobby McFerrin, and I loved like Stevie Wonder and Sting, and I loved Joni, and I loved all these different things. And there was this spirit in my mind. It was like, it felt like an orchestra, but it wasn't. It felt like a choir, but it wasn't quite choir. It felt like, so there were elements of like the freedom of jazz, but it wasn't quite jazz either. And it felt like kind of soulful, and it felt funky, and it felt electronic. And I think that as of right now, I think Volume 4 is the closest I've come to that feeling, like the feeling that was inside the music and the feeling that's been inside me this whole time, trying to get that into the world in a way that just feels like, hopefully, that there's something in it for everybody, and it was a fairly audacious album to try and make, and for a while it felt unmakeable because it was so big. But then, it took three and a bit years, but somehow it got finished, and it's a thrill.
Yeah, I mean, the whole album takes you for a ride, front to back. I mean, it makes you feel so many different ways, and even just starting with 100,000 Voices, that song alone takes you so many different places. Like from the radio dial intro into the epic verse into like the metal ending with Willow. Like, how did the metal ending come about?
Yeah. Oh, man, it's a great question. I've always been kind of obsessed with surprise, like the element of surprise in music. And the cool thing about surprise is you can do it in so many different ways. You can surprise someone with a chord, or with a groove, or you can surprise someone with a lyric, or you can surprise someone with a sound, like the way that a sound is crafted, or you can surprise someone with silence or space. But I think there's that one of the primal elements of surprise is just pure shock, like shock value. And I think that with this album, I knew that the journey of it, the sort of road of it, has never been linear, and yet it's very circular. And so I kind of had this joyous experience of knowing I wanted to disrupt it in some way, but not knowing how, until I heard this band called Arch Echo. And I'm a huge fan of this band. And they're like a prog metal alt band from the East Coast of the States. And they've been making this mad music for the last few years. And when I heard this band, and I've always been like a fan of bands like Meshuggah and bands that have this like intense like rhythmic element, but have this sheer intensity and the sonic precision. So yeah, they felt like they took that language further. So I called them up and said, hey, I've got this idea for the end of this song. It's like it's sort of like almost like a rocky anthem, and it's in like, you know, D major. It's like wide open, and there's 100,000 people singing on the song, and there's drummers from all over the world. And it's like just when you think you're heading in a direction, it just goes and it just switches the direction completely. And so yeah, I just had this dream of not only this band coming out, but then someone screaming over it. And I've hung out with Willow a couple times the last few years, and she's so awesome. But I've heard her scream in a really musical way, like in like a compelling way. Because you can scream in like a 2-dimensional way musically, but she screams in like a 3-dimensional way. And it was a really cool process to well, I asked her to. She said, "Yeah, I'm down to do it." And I watched her record it, and she knows like the recipe. Because you know what it's like when you record a lead vocal. Sometimes you want to double track the vocal or triple track it. You want to ghost track it or whisper track it, hard pan, whatever. And she had this specific recipe where it sounds like it's just one voice going, but actually she does the lead vocal is one like formant or timbre, and then she does like she double track these dark ones like almost like that, and then she also double track these like a higher formant, and then she hard panned both of the double tracks, and then the leads in the middle, which is more like tar. So it's almost like a chord. It's weird. It's almost like a chord, or it's like the harmonics of the scream that she just. I mean, she's brilliant, but she figured that out, and that was really cool to witness. And then she just brought that intensity all the way, and like, everything just goes into this like unmanageably intense thing, and then gets released into track 2. So yeah.
You hit me with the surprise because I didn't know that side of you. I didn't know the metalheadness, and I'm a fellow metalhead. So I was
Sweet.
Like, what, cool. Dude? And I knew about Willow screaming, but when I saw it featuring Willow on that track, I wasn't expecting, oh, that's the feature. Like,
yeah, exactly.
So it's like a double surprise of like, oh, where's the Willow? Oh, that's it. And it's like this like gent metal break is so sick. Like,
oh, thank you, man. It's funny. I got a lot of pressure from fans to incorporate gent as a genre because it's DJ E. And everyone's like, hey, Djesse, Jen, come on, man, when's this going to happen? And I was like, okay, let me just put 2 and 2 together and like solve this equation in this way.
Well, Jacob, if you ever need low guttural vocals,
call
your boy.
Damn, yeah, that's super impressive.
I was a metalhead for so long.
Elmo. Damn, wow.
Let's go. Dude, so you're king of the arrangements, man. It's funny because you were like, oh, it's not like I'm expecting like to get album of the year, but you're definitely expecting to get arrangement of the year because this category should be the Jacob Collier Award at the Grammys. Okay, like every single 6 years in a row, you've been nominated for Best Arrangement. You've won it, what, 6 times? 6 times. You've won it. 2 of the years you won both the instrumental acapella and the full arrangement one. Like, this is it's your category, so you do got to feel like, oh, I'm just going to drop something and get a little Grammy nom this year. It's the arrangement one.
Well,
come on.
Do you know what I love about that category now? And I think this has changed actually since I started, but that category has evolved from being like this category that was just ruled by like older jazz legend arrangers
to just yeah.
Brilliant.
No, I'm just sorry.
I think just people who are more experimental and I would say younger in a sense, but also just sort of more. It's become the category for people who make just open-minded sonic decisions.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. And the thing with the Grammys, as we all know, is it's impossible to objectively list anything in certain categories. Like there is no best anything, and some music fits better into some categories than others. And I would say a lot of my music just doesn't fit into any of the categories. But for whatever reason, I think arrangement felt like something where my ear kind of attracted whoever those voters are. And I've always enjoyed the process of arranging. I think about the process of songwriting and producing and mixing as kind of arranging adjacent. Yeah. And in a way, a bit like Quincy, actually, I started my journey as an artist, as an arranger. Like I would take people's songs, I'd put a spin on those songs, and I'd kind of freak the harmony out a bit and stretch them to the limits, and I'd present them as my own contributions. And that to me felt like a really kind of helpful and sustainable way in to the process, because if you're writing the song and arranging the song, then it's easy to become quite precious about the arrangement in a sense, and both of those two kind of paths of thought can get kind of like crossed, like the wires can get crossed. Whereas if you're arranging a song that is already existent and that you know, and that is a strong song, a song that you trust and that can withstand things,
Yeah.
then you can sort of safely parry with all these different decisions and forces. And I really enjoyed as a teenager experimenting with arranging people's songs, because I think that not only did it help me get my skills together as an arranger and producer and all these things, but also I think it gave people access to my harmonic brain and my musical brain in a particular way, because when you perform your own song and you put a twist on it, then it's presented as the original song. That is, you're the writer, so it's your song. Whereas if you present a song that everybody knows and you're augmenting or manipulating people's expectations or the result of people's experience, then people actually feel that pull between what they know and expect and then what they don't know and don't expect. And that marriage to me is like a lot of the power of musical joy. It comes from that, and in all the different levels. So as an arranger, I think I got some of my chops together in that way, and then transferred those skills later into songwriting of my own. So I think that maybe if there was ever a Grammy category that I would be friends with, not that I ever as a kid dreamed of getting a Grammy or anything like that. It in retrospect, it makes sense that it would have been that one, because I think that my brain had shaped itself into how can I take this thing that I love and people love and make it into something that's fresh and new and challenging. And I remember speaking to Quincy about this, and we can get to Quincy later, but Quincy's his first kind of works were of taking standards or songs or whatever for these incredible artists, people like Billy and Ella and Frank and all these people, and arranging these songs into a way that just felt clear, fun, like human, and then he took those skills and then became the producer that made records like Thriller, and I love seeing someone like you lay that path out for all of us as arrangers and make that world available to us in that way.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about Quincy later on, but to stick on arrangement. So you're nominated again this year as well for Album of the Year, and you also have the best arrangement for Bridge Over Troubled Water that you did with Tori Kelly and John Legend, which, I mean, dude, oh my God. Especially for it's because, you get to a point where you're like, what is Jacob going to do next? Wow, how did he top all these other arrangements? And then you come with this Bridge Over Troubled Water, which is like the wildest arrangement I feel like I've ever heard, but not just wild. It's mind blowing, but it's also so musical and emotional, and the performance that you pulled out of Tori, man. Like, oh, dude. And you just dropped the verse video of Tori's verse of Bridge Over Troubled Water, which then has You Everywhere, which is also like starting with you, like Jacob coming out on YouTube with your all your little squares, like to what to like the progress and growth into where you are today is so it's incredible. It's all encompassing of like the Jacob world and showing where you're at today, man. But dude, hats off. Can't wait to see the full video. Wow.
Oh, thank you so much, man. I mean, that to go off of one thing you said, actually. So me and Tori are kind of, we're directly peers in many ways, but one of the ways is that we both started in about 2012 on YouTube. Like we're class of that year of YouTube. So but for both of us, that was where our core fans lived, like before Instagram, before anything. It was, and TikTok, it was there. So we have a similar psychology with regard to making things, and we both love to do it ourselves. So we've both always like edited our stuff and produced things ourselves, and I think our audiences kind of trust the DIY element of each of us. And we've had really interesting conversations about this in the past. But I had a blast. I had such a blast going over to Tori's house, where she has this little studio in the basement in LA, near where you are now, and it was just this. It was like 1 hour, because she had to go and do a gig. She was opening for Jonas Brothers with Lawrence, my other friends Lawrence, who are incredible.
Yeah, amazing.
So we had this hour, and I was like, okay, Tori, I've like composed this this weird kind of navigation melody through all these chord changes that I figured out for this final verse of Bridge of Troubled Water. I want it to be epic, and you are the one person in the world who can sing it. And she was incredibly open-minded and game, and she's literally, I mean, she's kind of the greatest living vocalist. Like, she's just,
I agree.
I just don't know anybody else who could do what she does. It's extraordinary. And working with her on that whole passageway and hearing how she, just like her instincts with regard to vowel sounds, open, close, nasal, broad, and like choices, and it was a really freakish and unforgettable experience. And kudos to her for being so patient with me too, because I was so determined to get this really specific and basically unsingable line recorded. And she was just like, cool, I'll do it. And she learned it so fast, you know. I would sing her a phrase and then she'd sing it right back, and I'd be like, that's crazy. So we are just like, we're really close friends, but I think at that moment we realized just how like the sort of like the synchronicity of our particular approaches to music, and how satisfying it was for that to occur. But the story of Bridge, it starts really with YEBBA.
Wait, hold on 1 second. Wait, before you get to YEBBA, you did that vocal session in 1 hour?
It was 1 hour. Yeah, it was an hour.
My God, dude.
It was 55 minutes.
I mean, that's crazy. Just, from her hearing your crazy idea to her doing that with you was all in an hour.
It was all in an hour. I mean, that's Tori for you. It's just, there's like Olympic levels, you know, but
unbelievable.
We went phrase by phrase. And I hadn't even recorded my voices. I had a sketch on the keyboard. So I play the chords and she's singing at the top, and then we recorded this a cappella. And then that night I went back to my studio in LA that I had at the time in Hermosa Beach, and I recorded the whole verse. And then the following morning I flew to Mumbai, where my tour was starting, and I spent about 50 hours a week. I mixed Bridge and a bunch of other things for the album on the entirety of the 24-hour flight from LA to London to Mumbai. And then I kept going through the night. And then I did a gig in Mumbai, and I kept going after the gig in Mumbai. And it honestly took me about 4 months to recover. I was so tired. But all of this happened with it all happened with about 72 hours before the delivery to mastering. Like, it was so last minute. But that's a very Jacobian construct. But
how are you mixing on a flight? What kind of headphones? Like, what are you using?
I was just mixing on my Sony. What are the MX4? It's like the M4. It's 1,000, whatever it is. Which I know really, really well. And then I was A/Bing with the couple people who were with me. They had AirPods, so I was listening on those too. And
while you're on the plane. Yeah, it's like, those are great headphones. I know those headphones, but they're not exactly like, isolating really headphones.
It was a very memorable time. But the thing with a cappella is, I know it. Like, I know it so well. I know how to mix it. I know how to get those sounds.
Wow.
And so, like, I can, even if it's not an ideal scenario for mixing, I know how to achieve basically the results. And to give Emily Lazar credit, the mastering engineer, she is literally the world's greatest. But she brought things out of that arrangement, like spectrally, in terms of width, in terms of high end, that I just couldn't have believed.
Big shouts to Emily. And so, okay, so I interrupted you, but you were going to go on about YEBBA with the beginning of that song.
So YEBBA, I mean, YEBBA, another one of these just freaks of nature, and so deep and so musical and so important for all of us in the community. I think she just put a video up in 2016. Someone filmed her, or she filmed herself just in a bathroom or something, singing Bridge of Reward, the first verse. I've always just been obsessed with that video. And I was just like, man, this is crazy. And so in 2021, just for fun, I was actually hanging out at Chris Martin's studio. And he was like, if you ever need to use my studio for something, just jump in and do it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to just harmonize this video of YEBBA's on Chris's like U47 Neumann mic, which is like the best mic ever. And I never have access to that mic. So I was like, okay, I'll do it.
That's
so I did that. And then then I filmed a video, and I released the video. And the response to it was so warm and so kind of elated that then I had this kind of like punishing pressure from everyone to be like, yo, man, you better finish this arrangement. You better finish this arrangement. And, and obviously like YEBBA heard it, and YEBBA loved it, and it was really lovely. And we spoke on the phone, and there were a number of times where I spoke to YEBBA. I was like, hey, YEBBA, would you just sing verse 2 and 3? Like would you be down? And at first she was kind of like, yeah, I'll do it. And then I think she just got like absorbed into her project she was doing, and she was on the road for a bit and all this stuff. So in the end, I thought, well, okay, I really, really want Bridge to win the album. What if I got two other friends of mine to sing verse 2 and verse 3? Like that would, in some ways, like do YEBBA even more justice, because it's like all these different perspectives over the song, and it really honors her verse. So with YEBBA's blessing, I officially sampled her video. She requested not to be featured because she felt it was so old for her. So she was like, don't feature me, but you can use it. So I sampled her verse, and then I asked John Legend, who is indeed a legend, to sing the second verse, because I wanted that to be kind of as different as possible from YEBBA. I wanted it to be like a darker tone, like just a whole different storyteller. And, kudos to John. Like, that guy is so busy, but he jumped in the studio over the weekend. I asked him, I think, on a Friday, and by Monday, it was in my inbox,
Wow.
And I was just blown away. He sent me a number of different renditions of it. Like, there was like one where he was really soft and one where he was really full, and it was just like this whole display of different ways that he could sing. And I kind of pieced together from there like the ultimate tone. And then I actually asked him, I said, John, could you do a take that's like this? Like, it starts as though you're singing to a child, is what I asked him to sing, like as though you're singing to a young child. And then it scales in the middle to much more of almost like a churchy spirit, like a gospel spirit. Yeah. And then by the end, it just sort of frees itself up in the top register. And he just absolutely nailed it. I mean, like it was so emotional for me to harmonize with John, because it's funny. I've done a lot of harmonizing of female vocalists over the last 10 years, but actually fewer of male vocalists. So that was a really fun experience for me to be in a similar register to him, but like find the contrast with his tone and with his storytelling. So that was just really, really fun. And then, so he sends his thing through, and then I was like, it's just this like the final hero stone, and that's when I called up Tori, and the whole thing happened. And yeah, I mean, in the end, Bridge was like 3 days work, because it was the first day was YEBBA's video. Yeah. The second day was when John sent his thing through, and then the third day was Tori's hour session, and then me recording the vocals. So it was a bit of a rush job, actually, but it kind of ended up being what it was meant to be. And I often find actually in my process that sometimes the longer I work on something, the more it like dies, because your first idea has so much life in it. So I was just like, I'm gonna give my first idea, and their first ideas, and going back to YEBBA's original video, like it was just this off the cuff thing that she did, and the whole thing feels like a mixture of off the cuff, but also kind of like deeply emotionally considered, which maybe is an interesting way to approach anything,
Wow, I love the thought of the more you work on something, the more it actually dies, the more you think about it and keeping it fresh.
Yeah, there's a threshold. There's a threshold, because you need to think about something enough for it to be right.
Yeah.
And then you can over contrive something, as I'm sure too, in all these different parts of life. It's like you can think too much about something, or try and make something too perfect, and then it will lose all of its oxygen,
And is that what you were saying is Jacobian, essentially, like having it be quick, or having the pressure, the deadline be right up against it?
I mean, anyone who knows me or is on my team or is a friend of mine from school or my mom or anything, they'll just know that it's just like classic Jacob to work right up until the deadline, and just being like, but that's just something I've learned. It can be quite exciting as a creative process,
Oh man, I can relate to that for sure. How do you, so in thinking of Djesse as such a huge project, right? Both as the 4 volumes that are now done, but also even just as volume 4 and this like whole worldly album, how do you finish something? I know people have a hard time with just being like, it's done.
Yeah. Oh, it's so hard. I mean, everything has its journey, and some processes are more linear than others, but Volume 4, I said it earlier on, but Volume 4 for a while just felt like this unmakeable album. Like, I'm never going to finish it. There's too much I want to represent properly. Yeah. Because it's easy to throw things together in an album and be like, oh, there's a bit, this bit, this bit, this bit, this. It's just like put all in the broth and there it goes. But I wanted to do everyone justice on that record. I wanted to really show them in their most true light. And I wanted to tell the stories of what it was like to work with these people in a true light. And I also wanted there to be a line through the whole record that never feels discontinuous or overly jarring, or like something was just there for the sake of it being there, So it was that was what took the time. A lot of the elements of the album were there from the beginning, but it was the process of getting all those stones in a line that took a while, because there were just, as I say, so many stories to tell, and also like the pressure for me personally of this being my own, the conclusion of my own story of Djesse too, because Djesse began when I was so young when I started Djesse, 23 I was when I started Volume 1. And now I just turned 30, so it's been a huge part of my life, and in a sense it's like an impossible thing to say, okay, I'm going to finish this now. But there were specific things I knew I needed, and I mean you can probably relate to this too. But you need a beginning and an end, and once you've got a beginning and an end that you believe in, things start to come together. So I knew that for the beginning, I wanted to do this song with all the audiences all over the world. 2022 did this world tour, recorded 91 gigs, and from those sounds built this song 100,000 Voices, which is this huge sound. It's a massive sound of all these people all over the world, and it was a thrilling thing. So I knew I wanted that to begin the journey, and I knew I wanted it to be in D, and I knew it needed to be huge, like orchestral, but also like soulful. I knew I wanted to sing, like really sing. I wanted to because on tour I found like just new colors in my voice. Back when I was doing in my room, I would sing a lot like ooh, 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 like this. But with this tour, it's more like wah, wah, this kind of stuff. So I really wanted to like show some of that, because I loved, and it's been so fun to sing that song live. So I knew I wanted to begin in this like euphoric anthem, everybody 100,000 Voices way, and I knew the ending, because I recorded this song World or World, this piece World or World, before Djesse Volume 1 came out. I'd recorded that 2018, and for all of those years, I knew it never wavered as the last song. I knew it was my last song. So that was my bookend.
Wow.
And I knew that the song before World or World needed to be this kind of absolute, like the most epitome of a finale that's possible to do. And it would end up in D major, which is where the album begins. And if you listen closely to Box of Stars Part 2, which is the song in question, the finale song before World or World, which is the true ending, there's all these Easter eggs, not just to the album, but to previous volumes of Djesse too, where all these themes, it's a bit like a symphony, like all these themes come together in one massive sound. But there's drummers from 6 different continents of the world. There's the audience comes back 100,000 people. There's the Metro Orchestra conducted by my mother, SUZIE Collier. There's Steve Vai shredding over the top of it. There's the Aeolians of Oakland University. There's Jesse Reyes, who's doing a bunch of yelling and speaking. There's 22 different languages worth of fan contributions in terms of like just things that fans recorded for the album, which I can get into later. But it's just this massive congealment of all these ideas. So once I'd figured out the bookends, then it was just about making sure you go through the album and each base is covered. I needed a song like Little Blue on the album, which is really like a peaceful song, a grounding song. I needed a song like Wherever I Go, which is like funky and it feels good, and it's just kind of like, this is a relief. And it needed a song like Summer Rain with Madison and Chris Thiele to be just kind of sensitive and open and emotional. And it needed a song like Mi Corazon, which is a song I wrote with Camilo, to be funky and to be irreverent and be weird. And it needed bridge, it needed this a cappella kind of euphoric moment. So all these things kind of slotted into place, and then gradually, just over many days, weeks, months, and ultimately years of work, you finally end up with a thing where you're like, I think that's the album. And then 150-hour day awake of mixing over a plane journey, and then you're like, I'm done. I'm done in every way.
I'm toast.
I'm
toast.
And
then it's like, okay, it's out. Okay, success. Okay, now we're gonna tour it for a year and make it come to life on stage in front of hundreds of thousands of more people.
Well, this was the other thing about this record is it's the first record I've ever really made with the audience in mind for tour.
Yeah.
Because, for volume 3, for example, was made in quarantine, and because of that, it was made for quarantine. It was made in that room at home, and it was just this really kind of detailed and sonically experimentational album, and all these amazing features and things. But I never really imagined like, okay, I'm going to be playing this song live. Whereas for volume 4, I was thinking that the whole way through. Little Blue, that song is written for an audience to sing along to. 100,000 Voices is designed to be the first song of an arena tour, which is what we've been doing. And even a song like Box of Stars, like elements of those, like I designed it specifically knowing that the audience is going to want to sing along with X, Y, and Z. And I know my audience and I love them dearly. So it's like, how do you give them an experience where they have access to it enough to feel totally invited, but also feel safe in the structure of the album, you know? So it's been a revelation to tour this record, and it's been ambitious too, because, you know, some of these Logic sessions, man, like, there's one that's over 1,100 tracks. You know, it's like, you can't play that on tour with all the sounds active. You know, so for me, it's like, it's about distilling things, and also, like, there are over 100 collaborators. You know,
there's so many.
It's like, yeah, it's so many. So it's like about getting a band who have the capacity and the bandwidth to be able to shapeshift as well into all these different vocalists and these different kind of genres and styles and sonic worlds, and also testament to my crew, because, like, Jose Ortega, my house engineer, he has to understand what to do with folk music, jazz music, improvised music. There's like Latin elements, there's funk elements, there's a big house beat at the end. There's, like, you know, and there's huge heavy rock guitar stuff too. So we've all had to really learn how to, again, thread this cohesive line through the show. But I've never been more proud of a show.
And you're also going from, like, theaters to, like, arenas, like O2 Arena next week. Like, it's
exactly, yeah.
Full spectrum of mixing.
It's been full spectrum music, and, you know, as you know, with arenas, things change, because, you know, arenas are much more mono than theaters are, and so in a sense things can feel further away. But then the scale of it can be so much bigger, especially when it comes to the audience choir and the audience being involved. You know, I can't even describe to you the sound of 10,000 people singing polyphonic harmony. It's an unbelievable feeling, and it's like so different from something like 2,000 or 3,000. It's just kind of like this mass of humanness.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about conducting the audience, because you conducting the audience is one of the most special things ever. And watching where you're bringing it now as you do it more and more and more, and, like, your audience, you obviously have a very talented audience too, right? Of any audience of any artist, that must be the most talented audience, right? Like, but it's getting so wild with where you're taking it. I'm excited to continue to how you experiment with that many humans. But are you just blissed out when you're doing that?
Yeah, I would say blissed out is correct. Yeah, it's a funny state I go into, because it's almost a bit like a flow state of sorts, because I'm not doing anything. I'm not actually playing or singing anything. I'm just enabling them to do it. So I'm just moving my hands up and down. Different sections of the audience are rising and falling, and, you know, this is the language. I've been working on this for, man, a long time. Like, the first time I ever conducted an audience in 3-part polyphony was in 2019. But I remember even, like, the Quincy JAMMJAM we did in 2019. I remember I got the audience to sing 3 parts when we did Human Nature.
Yes.
You know, it's just something I've been obsessed with since day dot. It's something I'm still every time I do it, I learn something new, and it's never preordained. You know, I never have the one thing that I always do, that I will just do as a bottle thing. It's always, I'm just wide open to new stuff. So, like, on this tour, I've been experimenting with, like, whistling, like mass whistling, which is insane. And then also, you know, things like rubbing your hands and snapping your fingers, and because you could, the kinds of, like, soundscapes it's possible to create when you have that many sound sources. It's like the craziest Atmos rig of all time, you know. But instead of it being like 7 channels or 11 channels surround, it's like 8,000 channel surround sound, you know. And so, like, the kind of, just the way it feels is crazy. But, you know, my earliest musical memories ever were of conducting, were of my mum conducting an orchestra, because my mum's a conductor, and she's conducted at the Royal Academy of Music for almost her entirety of her career, like 38 years, I think it's been. So I used to go into that little Duke's Hall when I was a kid and watch her spring her arms and go rap, and then the orchestra would go and when you see, like, one of your elders do that as a kid, that really hits hard. So I think there was an amount of understanding how physical leadership can be that just stayed with me. But I never thought I'd be a conductor, because I don't. Yeah, the traditional form of being a conductor, we have the podium and the music, and you sort of tap the baton on the thing and you go. That just never appeals to me, because I'm not a classical musician in that way at all. But I think that for whatever reason, I ended up exploring it, and I'm still stretching it. I remember the first moment I ever got the audience to go chromatically, because, you know, a lot of the audience choir is fairly kind of, you could say, fairly kind of ordinary harmonic motion, a motion that everyone can understand. The beautiful thing about it is that even non-musicians who come to the show, people who've never made music in their lives, they can still follow along. The biggest like litmus test for me was doing the audience choir last summer. I did a bunch of festivals. I did like Glastonbury, for example, and Bonnaroo, and it was just this thing of being like, okay, if you're at a festival, you got 10,000, or in the case of Glastonbury, 30,000 punters, right? They've come to the show. It's 4:45 p.m. The sun is blaring down. Everyone's had a bunch to drink and is having a party time. Is the audience choir going to work? This is not my audience. This is the masses. And to my absolute delight and surprise, it worked. And that was a real moment for me of realizing that, like, okay, this isn't just a language for nerds. This isn't just like because my audience is filled with musicians. It's something that all people can interact with in some way, you know. Yeah. And that to me felt really, really special. And it definitely helps that, you know, a lot of the people who come to my shows just love music a lot, so they spend a lot of time listening to it or playing it. But one of the biggest transitions for me this year in terms of my audience is recognizing how many new people are coming into the fold with Volume 4 specifically, who aren't, well, they wouldn't call themselves musicians, but they just feel invited. Yes. And they come and sing. And what a beautiful thing to witness. For me, I take that moment of the show really kind of like, well, just it kind of really seriously, because it's the moment where I render myself the most vulnerable and transparent, in the sense of I can't hide. It's just me. Yeah. And my direction of travel, and it completely relies on them. But I've always believed it's like the voice is the most powerful instrument. When I started my journey, I was layering my own voice on top of itself time and time again, and just trying to get these big walls of sound. And then, it's like that instinct for me was so strong that 10 years into my journey as a public-facing musician, it's the same instinct, but I'm much more interested in other people's voices now than I am in my own, because that's what the world is all about. So you have all these different people who have come from all these different walks of life, who are all singing together. Everyone has a voice. It's something philosophically and spiritually to me. Just feels like that's the thing. Like that feels right to me. That feels prudent, and it feels amazing.
And you're taking them as a participant and making them a contributor, which is so incredible, man.
Exactly. I remember watching Freddie Mercury and Bobby McFerrin and all these people dissolving that fourth wall between audience and performer.
Oh yeah.
And I think, and as an audience member, I love that feeling so much of being like, hey, you're in this as well. It's not just, hey, everyone worship the guy on stage. It's like, okay,
come watch me in the dark.
You as much as me. Yeah, it's fun.
I love it, man. Well, dude, yeah, let's talk about Quincy. I'm so grateful for Quincy. He did so much for my life. One of the incredible things is he brought you into my life, right? I'm so incredibly grateful for that. And so my condolences, but also like, dude, what a blessing to be able to have spent so much time and energy and with Quincy.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, it's been a really, in some ways, a positive place to process Quincy's loss on the road, because every evening I get a chance to just throw those lessons into a physical space and get that energy back. And I mean, Quincy has so many little nuggets of things he says, but one of my favorites is play it, don't say it. He'll say, play it, man. Hey man, play it, don't say it. And so I think if Quincy thought, oh, I'm going to sit around and write and talk about Quincy and just like it all in theory, like, oh, Quincy said do this, or Quincy told me this story, or I did this. It's like, no, I just go just go and take all that and put it into the music, put it straight back into the music, because that's where it belongs.
Yes.
And so what an amazing place to do that on this tour. It's been amazing, but lots and lots of reflection. Quincy's one of these. He's a true champion of people he believes in. He's a true human. Some people will champion somebody who is hot for a second, or someone who has the potential to make them a ton of money, or someone who everybody else is jumping on board and saying they like, so you're going to do it too. But Quincy believed in me at a time before I even believed in myself. It was like I hadn't released any music of my own. It was before In My Room came out. I'd never done a show. I'd never performed. I was just a kid with a big imagination. And for whatever reason, in those arrangements that I was making of those early songs, he saw in me a potential which I don't think I even dared to see in myself. and it was the potential to take the DNA of what was in those arrangements as he did over the course of his life and transfer them into other parts of music. The other thing about Quincy is he's such a lover of people. And if I think about one of the most inspiring things that I look up to Quincy as doing is just the number of people who he cared for and who cared for him is almost dizzying to think about. I can't think of anybody I respect and admire who hasn't been in some way changed by Quincy, either through meeting him, playing with him, playing under him, or just listening to his records, but from all these different generations. So, it's been such a trip to reflect on 10 years of being under that man's wing, and all the lessons that he's been able to give me. But I think a lot of the lessons that stick the hardest are things that he did rather than things that he said, and he said a lot of really amazing stuff, but I think he's always been a real believer that music will never not matter, and that there's never been a more important time for music than right now. And so you just got to keep on making it on your own terms, and I love so much that he was able to he was such an unconditional encourager of mine. And I've made a bunch of weird music. I've made music of all different shapes and sizes, and I've never really made music with the intention of, getting on the radio or, hitting the masses or having a big hit song or something. There are just other things that matter more to me than that. But Quincy's always been down. He's been like, cool, man, I just trust you. Like a true champion. It's like, well, if Jacob's going to do it, then I'm going to show up and support. I find it really moving to think about that because, there are so many people in the music industry, especially now, who think that the best way to get the results out of, say, an artist or whatever, and this is from a fan perspective, from an A&R perspective, from a management perspective, agent perspective, everything, is to somehow put them into a box. Over the course of education and school and then, parts of the music industry too, there have been lots of people over the years who have said, hey man, Jacob, at a certain point you just have to pick a lane, man. Pick a lane and stay in your lane. What's your one thing what kind of music do you make, man? Just decide.
What is all this, man? Pick a lane.
Yeah. I think what Quincy gave me the courage to do was to maintain my openness. And be like, what if I don't have to say this is who I am in my entirety? What if I can say this is who I am in a continuing basis with no ultimate thesis? I'm just figuring it out, same as everybody else. I'm following the things I like. To use another Quincy term, so he used to say, follow your goosebumps. They'll never lead you wrong. He would say, follow your goosebumps. And man, that's what I'm doing. I'm just following the stuff that just lights me up. And Quincy was such a believer in that light of music in the world and of trusting the process of listening to that. But the thing with Quincy, he really showed by example. Yes. And the number of people he loved and lives he changed and history he made. I mean, it's just amazing. And yeah, I mean, really, like nothing but just deep gratitude for the man. And all of us who make music now, we've all been touched by him, and now we all get to continue that legacy through the work that we make, and that's such an exciting and hopeful thought for me.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, much love to Quincy. It's like I got him here in my office, and so it's like a constant reminder of just like same thing. He was an early validator to me, in the early days of Jam Card. Like that validation 100%. Can push you so far in believing in yourself.
Man, everyone needs an encourager. Everyone.
Man.
Like everyone needs someone to say, hey man, what you're doing matters a lot.
Yes, dude.
Like keep doing it. And I've seen you grow, man, right? From the earliest days of all of that, and like the vision you had for it, the social element, the fun element, the visual element, the way it was captured on film, the round, like it's been so cool to see you blossom and grow in that way. And I remember that 2019 Jam Card was mighty special. It was 2019, right? Am I getting that right?
Yes, it was, man. And thank you. Yeah, it was October 2019 we did the Quincy Jones Jam.
That's right. And because it was at the end of the month, because it was Halloween-y, wasn't it?
It was the day before Halloween. Because you and Quincy, you put on like the wizard hat.
Yeah, Quincy, I had a beard on, I think, and Quincy had this big hat. And there's some great photos from that time, man. It was wonderful. Yeah.
That was such an awesome night, man. That was such a great night. Oh, yeah. And it was great watching you conduct in the audience that night, too, in a smaller atmosphere.
For sure.
May have been the first time I saw you do that. I don't. But
I hadn't been doing it for too long back then. That was still very much early days. But super fun.
And Quincy brought Herbie Hancock into your life, right?
Well, actually, Quincy and Herbie kind of came in independently but together. It's a funny one that I always paired them because Quincy reached out to me. I think just before Herbie did, um, based off of having seen some of my earliest stuff, and then Quincy ended up flying me to Montreux Jazz Festival in Switzerland in 2014, so 10 years ago, to meet him and hang with him. And Herbie was there hanging as well. So I got to meet Herbie and Quincy in the same hotel on the same day. And later that night we went to the jam, and I remember I played My Funny Valentine at that jam session. It's the first time I ever played for Quincy, and Herbie was around, and it was just this thing where like they were like my two cronies, and they kind of showed me around the festival. They're like, hey man, so like there's this and this, that, and the other, and just hearing them tell stories and all that stuff. But then, they are so close.
Yeah.
And the last time I saw Quincy was last year, 2023. I was hosting a listening party for Djesse Volume 4. This is before it was done. It was nearly done, but I hadn't done a few parts of it were still yet to be done. But I was like, I'm just going to call a bunch of my friends up, see what the deal is, and see if they want to come and check it out, because it's always helpful to play things that you are making for people you love and respect.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wasn't expecting Quincy to come. Even by that time, I think that he was starting to slow down.
Yeah.
But he was like, I'm there. So he pulled up, and Herbie pulled up, and the room was filled with these people. And it was just like in my room, because when we made in my room, I recorded all the music and mixed it all at home in London. I brought it to LA to finish the mixing and mastering, and Herbie and Quincy would come every day. They'd come and hang out. And this was at Hans Zimmer's studio in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
And there's a little sofa, and they would sit on the sofa on either side of me, and we'd listen to the music, and we'd just laugh and jam and tell stories. And it was just so special and so fun. And this last year, it just felt like this full circle where, 5 albums later, I've got Quincy on my right, I've got Herbie on my left, and we're just like, it's just like they're my friends, and we're making, and we're dreaming, and we're just having fun together. And it was just an amazing thing. So yeah, I'm so grateful to both of them, and I do think of them as somewhat as partners in crime. And I mean, they know each other for 60 years, something crazy like that. So yeah, it's amazing to call them both friends, but also to witness them being friends with each other. It's trippy.
It's so beautiful, man. What is your relationship like with Herbie now?
I mean, he's just like, he's this ultimate, like, coolest uncle in the world kind of vibe, like coolest godfather. The last time I went to Herbie's house, classic Herbie, this is last year, and I go into the studio, and he's always bought the like latest and greatest gadget. Like, he's like right on the ground. So he was like, hey man, have you ever tried an Apple Vision Pro? And I was like, no, I've seen them online. So he puts his Apple Vision Pro on me, and he's like showing me how to get around it. And the thing when you pinch and you look at the thing and you pinch and you select, and he was all over it, man. And we FaceTimed when he was wearing it, and and I remember the first time I went to Herbie's house in 2016, he just got one of those Teslas that you can summon with the summon button.
Yeah.
And he drove me down. He lives at the top of a hill, and he drove me down the hill on turbo mode in this Tesla. Like, hey man, check this out. So I think he likes like freaking me out. like you won't believe this. And so yeah, that to me just felt like it always just feels like hanging out with the coolest uncle in the world, Herbie. But he's still touring like big rooms and changing lives and inspiring like all these different generations. And he's so kind and kind of graceful with his time, and he's still super sharp. And yeah, I love that man. Never want him to leave us.
Oh man, he's the best. Dude. That's so great, because he was always, he was known for, he was tinkering with the toys, right? In the 70s and the 80s, like the first toys, the first Lindrums, the first everything was like, he's the first to tinker.
Have you seen that video of Quincy and Herbie with a synth in the 80s?
Yeah. And
like Herbie's jamming and Quincy's tweaking. It's
and they're just laughing. Like,
yeah.
Just having the best time. Oh, dude, that's so great. Yeah. And then Herbie's new ensemble, he's killing. Actually, someone I want to introduce you to that I don't believe you know is ELENA PINDERHUGHES.
I do know ELENA.
Oh, you do know ELENA?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think we've maybe hung out once briefly, but we've never jammed. But she is so special. Like the way that she navigates harmony and she's just the coolest. I think she's rad. Yeah.
She's I'm gonna bring her to, just in case you and I do something together in January.
Oh.
bring some friends along. So anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just in case something happens. Yeah.
Yeah, just in case. Like, I don't know. You'll be in LA, just come over. We'll have some friends.
Yeah, right.
Come on. So, separate from musically, how many times do you think you've been alive before this?
Oh, wow. That's a big question. Man, it's so hard to know. There are parts of me that feel, it's funny, I think a lot about constitutional age, you could say, like the idea of like how old is your spirit?
Yes.
I actually, what would you say, how old would you say you feel? Like, what's your constitutional age?
You know what's
like,
funny?
In this lifetime as a human.
So I personally feel young because I feel I'm still very excited about so many things, which I feel like is kind of like a baby, right? Where like I'm constantly every day like, oh, like this is exciting. Like, and I was that even when I was a child. My parents always told me that, like, one of the first things I said was he dat, because I was just like, what's that? He dat always. And I still feel like here I am. I just turned 40 this year, and I'm still like he dat like always excited, right? And I don't know, I'm a natural optimist. So in that case, I feel very young. But I also, I don't know, I feel pretty empathetic and understanding of humans. I feel like I get along with humans in a way that makes me feel older, and the kind of understanding nature makes me feel older. And I've had, this is super weird, but I've had like people stop me on the street, like mediums and psychics, many times over the last 20 years, like strangers. Have even come to my shows and told me really wild things, that I've been here for a long time, that I was, that I've had past lives where I was like leaders in all different sorts of positions, which is super strange to hear. And that I have like thousands of people surrounding me as I walk. Like, I've had some wild things said to me from these mediums. So I don't know, man. I mean, that's also it's such an out thought to think of. And it also feels kind of egotistical, which is weird, but like, so yeah, I don't know. A part of me feels young because I just feel so curious and happy. But then I guess a part of me feels like, my understanding makes me feel old. Yeah.
You know what? I would honestly say the same thing. Like, I think that, there's a part of my kind of just like general ebullient enthusiasm, which just feels young spirited. And I also like my mom's the same, just like wide open, constantly at play, just like willing to tinker and be like, but and then there's the part of me that feels like more ancient, and it's hard to put into words, isn't it? It's impossible to say in deliberate physical terms, like, well, these are my past lives or whatever. And people have all sorts of ways of understanding the world and ways of kind of conjecturifying that and being like, well, this must be this or this must be that. And I'm kind of here for all of it, but I think to me, I feel like there's a part of me that has always known. Maybe that's the part that's the most distinctly old. It's like I already know where it's like I'm being guided by a North Star that's beyond my decision. I'm not like, I never decided like, right, I'm gonna do this so I can do this, so I can do this. I didn't do that. I'm just following like a feeling that it's like, yep, that feels like the direction of travel for me. Yes, I'm enthusiastic about this. I'm gonna go and explore that. So, for example, the audience choir, even though that's quite a specific thing in my life that's to do with being on stage, actually the kind of art of that and the feeling of that feels way more connected to like ancestral things than other things I do, because it's so communal and it's so much about kind of listening and being aware. So I think that there are elements of that and within that experience that feel like they're tapping into something that's bigger than me. Maybe that's one of the reasons I love it so much, because I think we as people can get so tied up in the illusion that we control everything, first of all, and that we're the one that we're the center of the universe, and that and especially when people say things to you. I mean, it sounds like people said these things to you, but obviously people say these things to me too in different ways. Fans do, and all sorts of, and friends do, and they'll say, oh, you are this or that or the other to me, and I think these things are all symbols. They're all ways of people loving each other. It's just being like, hey, I see this in you, man, and it's like, thank you, that's beautiful, and I see this in you too. But at the end of the day, it's like there are some experiences in life. Sometimes it's going into nature, or standing in front of a crowd, or singing really, really quietly, or playing an instrument or whatever, that feels like you're tapping into something that is much more in the beyond, and something where you don't have to you don't have to lead yourself because you're being carried. It's like the idea that you're being carried along, and you will end up where you end up. Your one job is just to remove obstacles that aren't helping you go there, because you already know where you're going. So maybe there's an element of that I try to connect with, in a sense. But people are so interesting, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting, man.
Yeah,
Life's exciting.
it's exciting. Yeah. I can't wait.
I feel like this goes back to the first thing I said to you, talking about being a world builder, because like your perception is reality, right? It's like, so whether
you make your own world by I feel in a sense that you have two currencies in life to make a world.
Yeah.
And one is your time and one is your attention. And with those two things, you can basically build any world you want, internally and externally, in a sense. Knowing that you will also end up where you are meant to be, so you can't control everything, and what you think you want isn't necessarily what you want, but you are already doing the thing that you want. So I think, to me, it's the same thing as always, but if you concentrate on the parts of the world which are out of whack, which are strange, which are hard to comprehend, which are troubling or challenging or just downright hateful, then you really do start to see that in everything, because everyone's got some fear. Everyone's got some fear in them somewhere. And if you're determined to put it out, you're going to find it, right? But if you place your attention on the part of anybody, even a person that feels so far away from you, where you stand and in your life, in your belief system, in your field, from your upbringing, even if even those people who you can't really see eye to eye, if you look from the eye, or peering through with the eye of, I'm determined to find the love in you, you could say, the part of you that just wants to live, you just wants to live, then you will always find that too. It's like you can always find vitality. That there's even vitality in rage or anger or vengeance, even though those things can come out really bad. There's still a vitality to it, and there's still life. And I think that for me, some of the, even just the last couple of months, has been this kind of this challenge of, you could say, like transposing, to use a musical term, transposing energy from one medium into another, so that I know how to receive it and understand it and actually do good with it. Because otherwise there's just energy everywhere from all directions, and you can just get subsumed, and I do, and we all do. But also you can choose to move your attention from one part of something to another part of something, and still see the thing, but see it in a different way. And then where you put your attention, things start to grow. Ideas, people, versions of yourself that you create, all these different things, and you have to be careful. But ultimately, where things grow that you believe in, then that's where you spend your time. And I think, to me, that's where the ultimate worlds are built, is when those two elements are like locked in. Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, it absolutely makes sense. And I want to say that I think you just changed my whole life, bro. You just, like, I swear, you have those moments where something just hits you so hard, and just to break it down, it's just time and attention, and putting in like where you're putting your attention, because it's really easy today to lose your attention, right? There's a million different mediums pulling
think
you.
About how much is tugging at it.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Everyone's tugging at it. I need some attention. I need your attention. And think how many billions of dollars are spent just to get your attention.
Yes.
Like these big corporations, they will do anything just because they know how valuable that currency is. They know that if they get your attention, they've got you.
Yes.
So it's like, but you are the ultimate, you're the ultimate filter. You're the guy. You can decide where to put your attention.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that's about being like, with respect, I'm not going to give you any more attention, or this thing any more attention. Maybe that's social media, or maybe that's whatever. But you are way more in control of that than you think, and then it can really change. Yeah, it can change a lot of stuff. I've been thinking about that a lot.
I think one thing that you're doing, and I'm hopefully doing, is when people are giving you attention, you are giving them something of value. You are educating them. You're inspiring them. You're making them feel good. I hope I'm doing the same. I'm aiming to do that. And
you are, my friend.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And like, so that way, and in terms of, so as a thank you for giving us your attention, we hope that we're providing you good feeling, thoughts, and emotions and inspiration.
Yeah, no, you really are, and you know what, you do it for so many people, and it's so good to see. And I think one thing that we have in common actually is that we prioritize building experiences over anything else.
Yes,
it's one thing to build, to say make a record or make a make a build a space or build a tour ever. But I think one thing that you understand that I've always also really treasured is the idea of the best thing you can provide someone is an experience where you could say like their attention is really reciprocated and fulfilled. You can do that in a live space like Jam Card or on tour, but you can also do it by making a record or telling a story or making a podcast, because there are ways of guiding people's experience through things. But for what it's worth, I think you're doing a fantastic job, man.
Oh, dude, that means a lot coming from you. I appreciate that, bro. So Zedd is coming over later today. Anton's coming over. He's gonna do the pod. He's the homie. Is there anything you want me to say to him or ask him?
I would just say that when I last was over at Zedd's house, I asked him about synth patches, and he gave me a folder of patches that literally changed my life. And it's all over Volume 4. He gave me a bunch of like Gladiator patches that I absolutely love, like Serum patches. So yeah, I would just be like, first of all, I love that man, and I hope to see him soon. But also, like, thanks for those patches. And honestly, just I can't tell him how far those have taken me. It's been super, super fun, especially for some of the more dancey bits of Volume 4. It's just been like having those like Zedd specific, all that stuff. Dude, is great fun.
It's crazy that you say that because I've been listening to Djesse Volume 4 a lot, and I've also been listening to Telos a lot, Zedd's newest album, which is nominated for Best Electronic Album. And in those little moments that you just said, I was like, oh, I hear similarity, but I didn't know. I knew you guys knew each other, but I didn't know that he gave you that, folder of patches. That's so great.
He gave me a folder, and it's called Zedd, just the letter Z, and it's just like, thank you so much. And I will always be grateful for people who want to share those kinds of things, because I mean, as anyone who makes music knows, it's like those that can get you so far. I remember one last story I'll say is I went to Casablanca, Morocco, 2018. to record a song on Djesse Volume 1 with an artist called Hamid El Kasri, who's like a Gnawa Moroccan legend. Didn't speak a word of English, and I went by myself to this hotel in Casablanca. It was kind of scary, and we had this really, really fun couple of days in the studio. We recorded a song called Everlasting Motion, which is this like hybridization of orchestra with Gnawa music. It was fun, but the engineer of that session gave me a folder of like Moroccan FOLI sounds. And like stuff from like film libraries that he'd got and whatever, and it was just like that. If there's anyone I owe the most to in terms of sound design, it's literally that man. Wow. And I can't even remember his name, but he gave me, it's probably 500 gigabytes of sounds, and like it just changes everything, because then I can search for whatever it is, crackling fireplace or rain or whatever, and it's like, oh, here's a sound that is in this library, and I'm always willing to give those things away. And Zedd, Zedd's like another brilliant example. It's like if you find something that is helpful to you and you tweak it and make it good, and you share it, that's what makes the world go round, and it's beautiful. And I'm super grateful for Zedd and for anyone who's willing to be open book about those things. I've been doing these like Logic session breakdown videos where I'll like take apart all my Logic sessions, because I just feel like it's so important just to there's no reason for me to withhold any information about how I made anything. It's just like, hey man, here's how I did it. Here's the patches. Here's the EQ settings. Like, you guys take it and go, because that's why we're here, right?
Man, that's amazing. Well, dude, I really believe that the bigger you get, the better the world is. So thank you for all you do, bro. Thank you for everyone you inspire, and for all your fans, like everything, like is so much love for the whole world you've created, man. So I'm happy to have my foot in your world.
much love, and right back at you. Excited for all the hangs soon to come.
Absolutely, dude. Have a great rest of your tour.
Yeah, thanks.
And maybe I'll see you in January in Los Angeles.
Maybe so. We'll see.
Awesome, brother.
Thanks, man.
Go with Elmo. 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 This is the stuff, man.